My parents died at a very young age. Both of them died at 49 years old. And so that is, a game changer for you. So for me, I turned my garage into a gym. I just started, I had a monthly membership. I'm a big picture person, so I have a lot of detailed people around me to fill in my blanks there. In my gym, I have 3 very good personal trainers that I've hired. And so that is helpful. And then my son runs the jiu-jitsu side.
As you were talking and just towards the end there, you had mentioned about, the church. And I wanted to ask you about how do you like, cause that in and of itself is a really demanding role.
It's kind of my life. And what I mean by that is my fitness, my personal training gym, it is ministry as well as my church. People would come in and they would say, hey, can you make me up a diet? Can you make me up a workout? And so, people just come in with random ideas. And I've always been into this stuff. And that's why I'm doing 100 appointments a week. I'm paying the bills through that whole thing. That gym in my backyard, in my garage, it sent my kids to a private school that I wanted to.
Was this something you always knew you would do? I mean, did you have a vision for this?
No, the lifting weights thing. No, I wanted to play center for the Los Angeles Lakers or left field for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Hey, good morning, guys. Hey, listen, folks, today we have an incredible guest on our show, someone who truly embodies strength, resilience, and faith. That's Steve McKinney, a best-selling author, fitness coach, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, who's dedicated to helping people age strong and live healthier lives. As the owner of Fitness or More, Inc., Steve has helped countless individuals transform their bodies through his unique 3W approach to fitness. Steve is also a church pastor, integrating faith and mindset into his approach to wellness. His book, The Gospel of Fitness, breaks down the science of strength training and nutrition in a way that's practical, sustainable, and life-changing. Guys, let us welcome Steve McKinney to the show. Hey, Steve, how you doing this morning, sir?
Hey, Bobby, thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I'm super excited about being here today. So I think we're going to help your audience. We're going to give them some really good insights and very practical stuff. So I think hopefully they'll enjoy this.
They will, Steve. I'm sure they will, man. I've been waiting. This is one of the shows that I've been waiting for, man, and with great anticipation. So, again, I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join us this morning. And I guess because we got so much to unpack here, Steve. So before we really start diving into the meat of the conversation here, can you give us area view of Steve and tell us a little bit more about yourself and just how you evolved and came into this fitness piece?
So absolutely. So for me, I growing up at about 9 years old, I remember watching like Mr. Universe or something when I was a kid. And I always loved sports, but I'm like, oh man, these guys with this muscle is crazy. And at 9 years old, my grandfather bought me a set of weights from a place called Kmart. You remember Kmart?
Kmart, I do.
And the weights were these plastic wrap weights, and they were called the Alcatron. And so, from there, I came home and I bought a book from Franco Columbo. He was Arnold Schwarzenegger's training partner. And, it was 2-hour workouts a day. And so I'm 9. I'm working out for 2 hours, not gaining any muscle, but I'm loving it. So you fast forward from there, and I just stayed into sports, and I just noticed how much weight training helped my sports. And so that, kind of evolved from there. My parents died at a very young age. Both of them died at 49 years old. And so that is, a game changer for you. So for me, I turned my garage into a gym. I just started, I had a monthly membership. And then what happened was, what I noticed is everyone had questions. It's kind of like today, people just go to the gym without a real plan.
Right.
But everyone had questions, and I thought, I'm answering questions all the time. I'm writing up diets. I'm setting up workouts. I should just become a personal trainer. So I did that from there, and that has really taken off. I am also, just to add to that, I am married. My wife, her name is Jennifer. She's She's a wonderful lady. She's just a blessing. And she actually runs a non-for-profit organization where we have orphanage in Haiti and we have churches in the Philippines. So she is kind of on top of that whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah. My son and I, we run the jiu-jitsu side of our business. We have, and I have a personal training studio, and I also run a church. And then I have a new grandson. His name's Matthew. And so he'll be here soon. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. He's always a blast.
Oh man, that's awesome, man. So you got a lot of great things going on, my friend. It sounds like, man, and I know it's keeping you busy. You know, what I was thinking about, Steve, when, as you were talking and just towards the end there, you had mentioned about, the church, and I wanted to ask you about how do you like, cause that in and of itself is a really demanding role. So how do you integrate being a pastor with all of the demands that come with that? And also all of these other things, in particular, the fitness and running the studio, black belt studio and all that stuff. I mean, how do you do that, man?
Bobby, really, it's kind of my life. And what I mean by that is my fitness, my personal training gym, it is ministry as well as my church. And what's interesting is I have a lot of people who go to church based on coming to the gym first. And just the conversation comes up, I don't ever force that conversation, but those conversations come up. And, I think I just try to live the gospel the best I can, which creates questions. And then the scripture tells us always to have an answer for those questions that come our way. And I do, and I just do it with gentleness and respect. And that has grown the church as well. The big part of that too is I have great people who work, I say with me at the church, great ministry partners. Obviously I'm the pastor, but I have just a lot of people who have a lot of great roles. I'm not a detail oriented person. I'm a big picture person. So I have a lot of detail people around me to fill in my blanks there. In my gym, I have 3 very good personal trainers that I've hired. And so that is helpful. And then my son runs the jiu-jitsu side. I'm kind of involved in everything. I actually have some problems I have to solve today. So I have a little jiu-jitsu deal. We got to, it's just part of leadership though.
Yeah.
You just deal with the problems. And so,
yeah,
it's just normal. I mean, every day it's something new. And like you said earlier though, the pastoring role is probably the hardest part. It just really is. It's I feel for pastors. It's such a challenge. It's so stressful. That job is very, very stressful. I try to avoid the stress the best I can, but it's nearly impossible. It is.
No, that's a good point, Steve. And you're right. It's one of those, roles that, stress is just a part of it. It comes with the territory, cause you're dealing with humans, and humans bring with them their own set
They're messy
problems and challenges. And right. And so yeah, you're going to be dealing with stress. But the great thing is though, man, you've been in fitness, it sounds like, from most of your life. And one of the ways that I know that I've been able to address stress and handle it better is by having a more active lifestyle and working out. And maybe you can speak to that, because since we're talking about stress and in this light, how does being active and working out helps to add value to your life in terms of helping you to deal with stress?
So Bobby, here's the thing, when I talk about, I'm sure we'll get into the workout part of it, but one of the things I do, I use very short, high intensity workouts, which means you go in and train hard. And when you go in, you're going to connect your mind to the muscle, meaning you're thinking about what you're doing during the movement. So I would just put it to you like this, you're in the moment. And if you go in with that mindset where I'm just in the moment, I'm going to work hard, I'm going from exercise to exercise, that what happens is, the stress thing, it just doesn't get out of your mind. You get some things, but when you go in for that workout, it separates that whole thing. To me, it's medicine. I just take it as medicine, and it really does help a lot, because I'm not overly thinking about my problems. I'm thinking about the problem I just created, which is my muscles are on fire. I'm burnt, but I love that. It's the same thing with jiu-jitsu also. You know, we're rolling around. It's so much fun, but people are trying to choke you. I'm not thinking about my problems. I'm thinking about how to survive in the middle of that.
Right.
So, but that's the big part of it. And then, you know, one of the big things I do also, I suggest is taking walks outside. I think that is super helpful as well. You know, just looking at the creation that we have, the beauty that we have, and enjoy that. I tell people, hey, take your camera with you and take pictures. It'll keep you focused. Don't look down, look up. And so I think that's really, really important. And so, but I think there's a connectivity to that whole thing, Bobby.
Oh, nice, man. That's really great information. Now, you had mentioned that you have, I guess, throughout your career and working as a personal trainer, that you've logged over 150,000 sessions. That's a lot.
And if you think about it, what I do is I do 15-minute sessions per day. And there's a point where 15-minute sessions per workout. Mm-hmm. But there's a point where I'm doing 30, sometimes 40 sessions a day. I'm working all day when I'm kicking this business off because I didn't know if it'd work. I quit my job. I'm all in. And so if you think I'm doing 100 plus a week, and I'm doing that for 10 straight years. So, right. You know, and obviously I've been doing this for 34 years now, 35. But yeah, that's how that came about. But you know what, Bobby, I get results for people, and I create a lifestyle for people. It's not just a, 6-week plan, 8-week plan. You know, I write about that in the book, but that gets people off the ground. Once they start feeling good, I keep them going in the middle.
I got you. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Why don't you dive a little bit more into how you started? Because we know you started having, interest in fitness at a young age, but how did you actually start the businesses? How did you get those off the ground?
Yeah. So what I did was, I converted my garage into a gym, and then I went to the city and I got a business license. Now, here's the problem with that. I was in a residential area. I have 50 monthly members coming in, which did not make me the most popular guy with my neighbors.
I bet.
Because there are people parking up and down the street. So, but yeah, that's where it started. And then what would happen is people would come in and they would say, hey, can you make me up a diet? Can you make me up a workout? And so, you know, people just come in with random ideas. And I've always been into this stuff. And so I have all that stuff ready, and kind of that's where it went from. And then it took me a while though to convert, you know, the 50 plus paying members to the private 1-to-1. And then what I did from there is I was working full time, and I started training clients in the evening. And then as that grew, I found a part-time job. And then as that grew, I took that final step of faith. So I had an incremental plan, but I took that final step. And, you know, Bobby, when you go through that, you learn a lot about how to grind. And that's why I'm doing 100 appointments a week. You know, I'm paying the bills through that whole thing. You know, that gym in my backyard, in my garage, it sent my kids to a private school that I wanted to send them to. You know, I mean, we were scraping by, but, you know, at that time, there wasn't a lot of personal trainers. And, you know. So yeah, so that's kind of, that's awesome. So yeah, you're right about the grind and the work ethic that it took for you to even, you know, apply working at a job and then coming home and having these clients you had to work with. So you were actually developing a pretty strong work ethic right then and there. So now we can kind of see why you can handle the demands that you have right now, because I never thought about it like that
at the beginning.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I've always just stayed really focused on things that are productive for me, and so that's why I was able to do that.
Was this something you always knew you would do? I mean, did you have a vision for this?
No, the lifting weights thing. No, I wanted to play center for the Los Angeles Lakers or left field for the St. Louis Cardinals. But my vertical is declining as we're in the middle of this podcast, so that ain't going to happen. But no, I've always loved sports and that, you know, that type of thing. The training thing, yes. The pastoring thing, no. that kind of fell into my lap. The personal training thing, I was like, oh yeah, this is something I want to do. And the pastoring thing, it kind of happened by osmosis, basically. We had a church that fell apart. I was leading a Bible study, and, I think it's just one of those things where, God says, hey, raise your hand if you want in. And after 30 years, I'm glad I raised my hand, but there are times when I wish I hadn't.
I can imagine, man. That's a tough job. So when you started working in the fitness space first, and how soon after that was it that you started doing the pastoring?
Oh, it would have been many years after that. So yeah, I was always a churchgoer. Had gotten saved, and actually through my garage gym, a guy came and shared his faith, and I'd grown up in a particular religion, but it wasn't a real thing to me. So wow. So it was that story is a whole nother story, but that's kind of how that played out.
So one of the folks that you were working out with, they actually led you to the Lord?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, guy's name was Don. I still talk to him to this day. Yeah.
Isn't that something?
It is. It would have been around 1990 because I had just won the 1990 Mr. Southern Illinois. And so, and he was a member of my gym, and, he just, would just come and talk to me all the time. And so he's really evangelistic. So yeah.
He bought the gospel to you, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. Changed my life. Well, my mother's dying words, she actually died on Christmas morning in my arms. So her dying words were, serve Jesus and tell your brother to serve Jesus. And at the time, I just didn't really know what that meant. And so, so that kind of, it's just amazing how God orchestrates things.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm listening at, you tell the story, and it's amazing how he would, how God helps us to integrate, our passions and some of the things, like you were passionate about fitness, you enjoyed it, and how you're integrating this into ministry in a way. And I think that's pretty powerful, because you had talked earlier about some of your church members. And I know this is not something you go to church and just try to beat them up on and say, hey, come to my fitness, or let me, do some personal training stuff with you. But when you, how do you communicate your fitness to them? Because fitness, obviously, we know fitness is important. We know health and well-being is important.
Yeah,
but no. How do you? Yeah,
it's the number one part of my leadership is I lead by example. That's my number one thing. But the other thing is this: when I released the book, I did a bunch of book tours, and I did them in the church circle. And so there's a big church over in St. Louis that I'm associated with, probably 1,500, 2,000 people. And so I did literally fitness seminars based primarily on fitness and how we integrate how our lives are connected, both physical and spiritual, and how important that is. Because God has given us this body. We're to take care of that. So it's just, once again, it's just who I am. And I think it just comes off that way. So I never force any of those things. I just explain things to people. It's like when I have a new client that comes in for a personal training, I get free consultations. I never, sell them. All I do is explain the benefits.
Right.
And I just tell them, listen, if you want this is going to change your life. But if you don't, I totally understand. But probably close 90+% of my sales.
Wow.
Yeah. So
nice. I'm thinking about, let me go back to the 105th personal training sessions, right? I'm sure you've had some stories that have impacted you. Obviously, when you just telling us about the, one of your clients that led you to the Lord. Can you give us a story or tell us about maybe some results or something that happened with one of your clients that was really memorable that you think our audience could benefit from?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things I did early on, my website is fitnessandmore.net, but I kept track, and I did this at the behest of one of my mentors. He said, always have people take before and after pictures, So on that website, you could do a / results, and I just show the before and afters, for people. So we have tons of them, but I think one of the most impactful things right now that I'm dealing with is I have a guy that's been training with me, 74 years old, been training with me for over 10 years, was recently diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And so anyway, I thought that would be the last time that I saw him. And about a week after the diagnosis, he texts me, he goes, "Hey, can I get back into the gym for my workout?" And I said, yeah, but he's on chemotherapy in the middle of that. But it's amazing to watch the mental strength of this man just to come into the gym. And I'm being cautious. I'm being careful because he's lost weight. He's like, "Oh, we need to lift a little more." And I'm just trying to hold him back a little because I'm like, "Hey, you're dealing with chemo." But it's absolutely inspirational, to see that. A few other stories that come to mind. I'll have people, they'll come in and like, "Hey, I'm going to take a police officer test. But I only have 4 weeks and I need to pass this test." And that is a very specific test, and I know how to train people for it. But getting people to go from not being able to do anything, to be able to pass that test has always been amazing to me. But I've had several where we've done it in a short period of time. But I remember one guy, it took me a year to get him to pass that test.
Really?
Yeah, it's a whole year. But I have multiple stories of people who've lost weight, who feel better, who've gained a muscle. I just story after story after story, because that's just kind of what we do in the middle of that. And so,
man, I got so many questions about this part here, but I know we can't tap the whole show here on this point. But let me ask you this regarding the weight loss thing, right? Do you have a client, or can you remember a client that you work with that lost a tremendous amount of weight or something significant that you can maybe share also about?
Yeah, no, I have clients who've lost over 100 pounds, and they did that naturally. They've done that through just my system at the 3W approach. You probably saw that in the, it's weight training, walking, and watching your diet. And that system is very, very simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. But what I have clients do is track their food. You have to know, if you don't measure it, we can't adjust it. So we have to measure what we're doing. It's so important that we do that. So, but yeah, I have clients over 100 pound weight loss. I have a lady that still trains with me now, needed a knee replacement, and she had to lose a significant amount of weight. And so we just had a meeting one day and said, "Listen, this is a do or die. We're in the bottom of the ninth here." And so, and she's done well, and she's kept it off, and the knee replacement went really, really well with her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah.
What about older clients, clients late 40s, 50s, 60s,
70s, 80s, 80s.
Really?
I trained my aunt, 87 years old yesterday. So, Bobby, here's the thing. Muscle is muscle no matter what age you are. The goal when it comes to weight training is to stimulate muscle. It's called inroading. You want to deeply stimulate muscle. I do that with every client that comes in the door. There's no difference if I'm training. I train high level jiu-jitsu athletes. There's no difference in the workout protocol than my 87-year-old aunt. Wednesday's old folks home day in my gym. I have a lot of older clients. I have a time static contraction unit. It's a different way to train people with injuries, but they love it. And, I really look at those older folks in that respect, and I think that they're the lost group. And so I always try to honor that whole situation in the middle of that. But back to your question though, when people are aging, the whole goal of the book that I wrote is aging gracefully. And that starts the aging process. Sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss, starts at about 35 years old. And so when people get in their 40s, they have so much left in the tank. I can really, work with people in that age. When they get to their 50s, the tank's about half full. When you get to your 60s, you're about a quarter tank there. So it's starting to decline. But I have clients, probably most of them are 50 and over, but I also have young athletic guys that I train. My son's a jiu-jitsu athlete. He's a high-level competitor. He uses the same system. Now, the difference in the middle of that, Bobby, is how much intensity can they put out, how many exercises can they do, and how much weight can they lift. But once again, a stimulated muscle is a stimulated muscle, and that is the whole goal.
Yeah. Now, and so hopefully you can, and you've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but I want to make sure we back up and highlight this a little bit more, because there seems to be around aging when it comes to, like some people say, oh, well, late 40s, early 50s, or in your 50s or whatever, you start, it's harder for you to get the weight off. And so it's this sort of like this mindset, or this myth that you can't lose weight and you can't be healthy, because the older you get, it's sort of like you're expected to have problems. And once you pick the weight up, it's like, I can't, my metabolism's low and all that. And so it's a myth that I think that exists, that older people cannot have vibrant, healthy, and productive lives as you age, which is what you've been talking about. But I want you first to be able to maybe dive into how to maybe dispel that myth. And the second thing is I want to mention for my own self that I used to think that way, to be honest with you. When I was in my teens, I was athletic and I had no weight problems. My weight started to really start affecting me after I got in my like 20s, like late 20s, after college and stuff. And I started to deal with weight issues, but I really started having weight problems when I got like in my 40s. And so I had come to a conclusion that this is just my lot in life. I'm not going to be able to lose this weight, because everything I tried failed. I would try all the diets, and I would try, the walking, and sometime I would, go to the gym occasionally, but I wasn't consistent. And I just felt like, man, I ain't gonna never get rid of this weight. And it's interesting, at 53 years old, I'm in the best shape
I love that.
of my life.
I love that. That's awesome.
When I turned 53, I could bench press more weight. I ran a half marathon.
That's awesome.
I did stuff that I didn't do in my 20s.
I love it.
And it's interesting that somehow we got this false belief that you can't excel and live this great life from a wellness standpoint as you age. So talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I'll go back to your particular situation. So here's what happens. You're in high school. You're athletic. You eat what you want. You're training. You're moving. You're in college. You're athletic. You eat what you want. You're training. You're moving. Now, college ends. You're not athletic anymore. You're not doing the stuff you did, but you're still eating what you're wanting, and you're not moving as much. That decline right there, it starts early. Now, when you get to, if that starts really early, you get, and it continues on in your 30s and 40s, that's where the negative mindset comes in, because you think, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to get this off. And then what people do, Bobby, is they sign up for a gym membership without a clue on what they're supposed to do. Like you said, that you go in and you try these new diets, you try this, you try that. I call it, when you sign up for that gym membership, I call it going in like a lion and out like a lamb. You sign up in January 1st, you're gung-ho, you're working out 5-6 days a week, which I think is a part-time job. And then you are, by February or March, you're out like a lamb. You can't do it anymore. And so I think the big part of that is the mindset shift. And then I also think this, having a proper plan. You've got to look at this from the long haul. It's not a quick fix. This is a lifestyle change. And once you can understand that, it's going to make a huge difference for you. For me, I have clients that come. I just had a guy in the other day, and here's the beauty of what I do. My workouts are very short, which makes it so doable for people. I only suggest 2 15-minute workouts per week. I had a guy in last week, and I'm going to see him again today. I trained with him 30 plus years ago in the gym. And he said, hey man, I see all these things on TikTok on this high intensity training. And he goes, I remember, and I hadn't talked to him, but he contacted me. He goes, I remember you did that stuff years ago. I said, yeah, because it was the best way to train. He goes, well, it seems to be making a comeback. And he said, can you show me? So he came in and he's explaining everything he's doing. He's in the gym. He's a police officer in the gym an hour and a half a day. And I told him, I go, look, I understand the mind, it helps your mind. I said, but it's not helping your body because eventually the body's going to wear out. I took him through an 11-minute leg workout and blew his mind the other day. And so he was so thankful. He's like, I've never felt anything like that before in my life. And so shifting that mindset to tell people, listen, exercise is a very inefficient way to lose body fat. Now, take that for what it's worth. What I mean by that is, if I want to burn a bunch of calories, doing a bunch of exercise, it doesn't always work that way. It actually can be detrimental because cortisol levels begin to get higher. My joints begin to hurt if I'm doing excessive exercise. So my suggestion is to minimize the exercise and to make sure that you're focused on eating properly, because body fat levels are controlled primarily by dietary factors. They're controlled secondarily by exercise. Building muscle is the most important thing you could do to help control those body fat levels, because it kicks up your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. And so once I combine everything and show people how to do that, keep track of the food that you're eating, eat real whole foods. Those kind of things really do make a difference. But listen, I have a lady, Joanna, I just trained her yesterday. She's over 80 now, but in her late 70s, she wanted to lose weight, followed the plan perfectly, lost body fat, felt, as good as she could have felt at that age. So it's doable for people, across the board.
Man, that's awesome, dude. The one thing you talked about was, as your life changes, your activity levels, like, and that struck me. And you're right. I can see that was a pivotal point for me when the weight started to just wreak havoc, because I was probably more inactive during that time, because I'm working full time. I'm sitting behind a desk all day, and I'm working long hours. So you're doing very little exercise. And so what happens over time, that catches up. So the inactivity piece and just not doing anything is something that I think that you highlighted here, that I hope folks really catch. And the other thing here is that's really interesting to me is that you also shared something that also hopefully will bring comfort to some folks, is that you don't have to be in the gym 2 hours.
Oh, no, I don't suggest that. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
It's very simple. The programs are very simple. Bobby, another thing that happens too, as we age, is we have that hormonal decline. And so that's a big factor that figures in. But going back to what you said, weight training will rebuild those hormones a bit, doing it properly. But you don't need to spend a lot of time. I mean, I have hundreds of people who have tried to, follow my system. And it's made a world of difference for them.
Yeah.
And it really does make a difference.
Man, that's awesome, dude. And I'm so glad that we talked about this part here, because I think some people just give up because they go back to Instagram, TikTok, and they see these people in the gym. They lifting all this weight, and they're in the gym 2-3 hours a day, and they feel like, oh man, I got to do the same thing in order to look like them or get these types of results. But what you're saying is that, that's actually the opposite, and you could be affecting your results in a negative way by doing that. So really, really important information there. And I'm hoping that our folks will follow up with you. I'm sure that they will to get more insight about this approach. Now, that leads me to the book. And I want to talk about the inspiration behind the book and why the title. How'd you come up with the title?
I don't even know, to be honest with you. I just thought, oh, this is good. Because people ask me, they'll say, hey, is it gospel or is it fitness? And my answer is yes. It's very subversive, but it's kind of like, I feel like the gospel means good news. Yep. And so I feel like the title it's the good news about fitness as well. It integrates, your spiritual aspect with the physical aspect. Now, a lot of people see that, and it does turn off a particular group of people who don't want to hear that stuff. And, but if you read the book, it's not in your face like that kind of stuff. What it is, it's an example of how I live my life and how I integrate things and how I've trained clients over the years. But it's never, beat you down,
right.
hellfire and
right.
brimstone stuff, So that's really the inspiration too, was I go back to my parents, both of them dying at such a young age. And I think that that's a lifestyle thing. And so I just think they miss so much. And the interesting thing also is I just didn't want other people, if I could help other people, not to miss the best parts of their life as they age. That's the whole idea behind it. I just want people to enjoy their lives and do the best they can in the middle of that.
Wow. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. What's this? Tell us more about this 3W approach. I mean, we've talked about it in general, but I want you to kind of maybe drill down specifically on each area.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I do, and I got a few of these set up too, when I do public speaking on this, which I love to do, by the way, I always do the public speaking, then I open it up for question and answer. And the fun part is I can answer any question because I run it through a particular framework, and that's the 3W approach. So if you hold up 3 fingers and you don't have one of them that are broken, it actually looks like, that's a jiu-jitsu injury, I think, by the way. But anyway, the 3 fingers, they make a W. It's weight training, walking, and watching your diet. So weight training, what it does is builds muscle. It helps fight against osteoporosis. There's so many benefits to it. It releases these these things called myokines, and myokines are these little signalers, we'll just call them signalers, that send signals to the rest of your body that said, hey, we're doing something great over here with our muscles, and so we want to share it with other parts of your body, your liver, your kidneys, your lungs. All those things have benefits in the long run. A lot of people look at the outside of what's going on when you're weight training, and we love that. We want to do that. You mentioned, all the influencers, and that's one of the biggest problems we have is these influencers. They just have to throw out all kinds of stuff. It's a money-making thing. It's a grab, But what we look at is, we want to look better on the outside, but we also want to make sure on a cellular level, we're doing things that are beneficial to us. So weight training has a specific purpose, and that's to build muscle. I don't use it for any other thing. I'm very careful in how I lift weights. The second thing is it's walking. And walking, what I suggest for people is to walk for 30 minutes a day, preferably after dinner, especially if you're trying to reduce body fat levels. I think it aids in digestion. There's a lot of things that it does, but what it does also, there was a study that was done, Bobby. There was, the guy measured calorie burn 3 hours after particular activities, and the activities were walking, they were eating and walking, and they were walking and eating. And the middle one, eating and walking, the measurement on that one kicked up calorie burn by 25 to 30%. And so there's something to that really seems to be helpful. And then the third thing is watching your diet. And when it comes to watching your diet, you want to eat clean, healthy foods. But the big thing is if body fat levels are controlled by dietary practices, meaning how much food I eat. And so it's super important that we eat proper foods, but we also get the proper amount of calories. And if I'm trying to lose body fat, I want to create a calorie deficit. You hear all kinds of arguments with people saying, oh, you don't have to count calories. That's simply not true. I understand the arguments. They are talking about eating whole foods and things like that. And I understand those things work. But for most people, they need to know exactly what they're eating and how much they're eating. In the real world practice, it's a bit different. But I do suggest whole healthy foods in the middle of that. And so it's a very simple program. For men, protein levels should be anywhere from 90 to 120 grams. A lot of it is going to be based on your body fat, but just as a general rule. And for women, 70 to 90 grams. And once again, I'm casting a broad net here. You can individualize that a bit more. But for me, that seems to be a good starting point for people.
Gotcha. Well, what you've certainly made the process more easier to digest, meaning that, you have these 3 pieces here, right? Because sometimes I think folks are just inundated with so much information as it pertains to fitness that it's like, okay, what works? Should I try this? I mean, this is some new gimmick. But you really simplified the core essence, living healthy.
Yeah, that's my goal. And what you just said is so true. You Google how to get in shape. You're going to have a billion different things to do. And it's so confusing. Everyone who comes through my door comes up with all these, like, I'm just confused, or do you follow Dr. So-and-so? They're on, TikTok. I'm like, I don't even know what TikTok is. I'm not even on TikTok. So, so for me, I'm like, listen, just let me explain to, cause I'll have clients. Just recently had a client, really liked the client, and they went to their doctor. And the doctor said, oh, you need to be doing weight training 4 times a week. And I'm like, so you're gonna, listen to your doctor who doesn't have a background in weight training, it makes no sense to me. So but when I asked what did that mean, they said, no, we just have to be in the gym 3 to 4 times a week. And I'm like, listen, you can get just as good results, if not better, in much less time. And what you said is true, though. There's just so much misinformation out there. And what it does, it wrecks people's bodies as well. It causes them so many problems.
And that was the other thing I was going to ask you too, right? Because all of these fad diets and all this stuff, they're trying this and that. And so what happens is, now it just throws your whole system out of rhythm. What are some of the dangers that you see exist with people trying all these various types of diets and stuff like that?
Well,
based on all this misinformation.
Yeah, I just think that it's I just think that it's discouraging. That's the number one thing I would think for people is they don't get the results they're after doing those types of things. And it's miserable a lot of times, you need to simplify it. The big thing now out is the Ozempic and the weight loss drugs and things like that, which I tell my clients when people ask me, they'll say, what do you think about those? And I'll say, listen, I want you to measure the side effects of the drug versus the side effects of obesity and put them side by side. And then you can make a choice from there. But either way you do it, if you're on that weight loss drug, you have got to lift weights. Otherwise, studies have shown that a lot of the weight loss is muscle tissue and it can dig into some bones. So you have to lift weights in the middle of that.
Wow. See, again, what you're doing is, and we're not, obviously we're not doctors, but what you're doing is you're offering us and giving us what really is practical. And these are it's foundational. It's not a trick. It's not a gimmick. It's not but it's, for a lot of people, I think they're thinking that they can take some magic pill or are they looking for some quick, but there are always consequences to these other types of things that we choose to do. And I'm a living proof of that. I mean, I tried all the diets. I mean, I'm the guy on social media saying, oh, I can lose some weight by just eating watermelon for 7 days or whatever the case is. They got all these crazy diets, right? So what happens is, with all of these diets that people are trying, you're right, you get discouraged. And then what happens is it seems like it overshadows the core principles to healthy living. And you just name them. You just named 3. If you don't lift weights because you are sedentary, you will stand the risk of injury a whole lot more. And I'm speaking only about myself. And this, again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm just talking about what Bobby experienced. When I was overweight, when I went through my situations and trying to lose weight, I had been sedentary for a couple of decades. When I began to try to go back to the gym, I noticed, and this wasn't just this is just something that I picked up when I got to the gym, right? And I started to kind of like, get on the treadmill and stuff like that. I noticed one day I was on the treadmill. I caught a cramp in my leg it's almost as if I pulled a muscle, and I'm just doing a light walk. And this was after I had started working out for a little while, right? And I was just on the treadmill and I was wondering, I'm like, what's going on here? What had happened, Steve, I noticed that something was going differently with me, with my progression as far as my journey at the gym. See, I always liked working upper body. I would spend more time working upper body, less time working my lower body. So what was happening was my legs never got a true workout. And I began to realize that I was finding that I was more injury prone in those areas when I tried to do certain things, right? And so I began to realize how important it was for me to start working my legs out. So I started using leg machines and I started doing squats and stuff like that to build muscles in those areas because the leg muscles had kind of started to deteriorate. Upper body strength, no problem. And I realized at that moment how important weightlifting was to working your muscles, period. And you talked about the calorie deficiency and reducing your calorie or counting calories. Another myth. People felt like, and I was one of them, you don't have to reduce your calories. If you don't reduce your calories, your intake, you're not going to lose weight.
No question. It's physiological fact. There's no ways around it.
Period. It's just not going to happen. So you can do whatever you want to do. You could do keto. You could do all that other stuff. Sustainability wise, lifestyle change wise, weight wise, losing weight. If you don't reduce your intake, you cannot lose weight. I had that myth for years, and that's the reason why I wasn't losing weight, because I did not address that area. One of the 3 W's that you talked about. I didn't address it. I wasn't working on my diet. I was just like, maybe I just go, work out or whatever, and try to lose weight that way. But if you don't do that, man, so the point is this. All of what you just talked about, to me, I've experienced those things in my weight loss journey, and I've been able to keep my weight off for 3 years now because those things now have become a lifestyle. I just don't like feeling full anymore, so I ain't got to worry about overeating.
Yeah, it feels better.
I just don't like it.
Yeah, nothing tastes as good as being leaner feels.
Yeah, right. And so you getting into the gym and working out and making sure that you're building muscles. And so when I started working my legs out, man, I was actually able to be a part of that half marathon.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I could have never did that had I not got, my leg muscles up.
It's a compliment, and so for me, early on in my journey, and this was 30 plus years ago, I read this guy, Tom Platz. He says, if you work your legs hard, it's like the trunk of a tree. It'll grow and the branches grow with it. And I always did that. And Bobby, you know what else on that? It helps your heart so much. It really makes a difference. So yeah, but I'm super glad though that you're doing what you're doing. It's really cool.
Yeah, man. Practicing what you writing in that book.
I love it.
Got in that book.
I love it. Awesome.
I'm a testimony that, guys, and what Steve's talking about works. So
love it.
Make sure that you pick his book up. So Steve, so much more I would like to ask, man, but I know we got limited time. But before we get off, can you provide maybe some words of wisdom to folks who right now might be struggling in the area of fitness and health, and just something that you can impart to them to hopefully bring encouragement?
Sure.
As we get ready to close.
So weight training is medicine for your body. Walking is medicine for your brain. Watching your diet is medicine for your biology. And so those things really make a difference. So here's what I would say if someone's struggling: set a goal. And for me, I have a grandson. My goal is to be able to teach him jujitsu when he gets older. And so those little goals matter. The second thing would be, after you set that goal, buy my book. It's going to help you. I promise. I'm not just trying to sell a book, but the truth is it really does make a difference. If they have questions, people can go to my website, contact me on Instagram, Steve McKinney Fitness. I have a YouTube channel, Steve McKinney Fitness. And people ask me, why don't you post a lot more there? And I'm like, because when you look at the influencers, what they have to do is they always have to have content. Right. And what they have to do is create content that doesn't have to be true, but they just create content. I just can't do that. And so for me, my YouTube channel has more to do with rehabilitation exercises for my client who may have a shoulder problem. And here's what you do in the middle of that. And then my website is fitnessandmore.net. And there's an intro workout that they can contact me through there, and I can help motivate people and get them started in that direction as well. We do a lot of online training as well.
That's about what I was getting ready to ask you, because I know I'm sure that our audience will be reaching out to you. I wanted to make sure that you did offer online training.
We do. I have clients all over the country.
Okay, nice. So how would that work really quick?
Dumbbells. set of dumbbells. We do I'll do a FaceTime or I'll do a Zoom meeting. And I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 this morning already.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
that's good stuff.
Yeah. And they're still the same principles, the same programs. And I motivate people in the middle of that, and so that is helpful for them.
All right,
and the book is on Amazon, by the way. It's The Gospel of Fitness.
Okay. You got it. Can they also purchase it from your website?
Yeah, it's connected to the website as well. Yes.
All right. Fantastic. Steve, thanks again, man, for coming on, man. I tell you, and sharing this really, really great information, very practical advice on how people can get in shape and stay in shape. And
thank you for having me, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was fun. And so, folks, that's all we have for you today. Look forward to talking with you guys on next week. Until then, take care.